Now we're back with some more Alaska news for Tuesday, November 22nd, 2016. Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor Mike Navarre has asked the Borough Assembly to approve a $75,000 appropriation to allow the legal department to pay for legal fees relating to the borough's new invocation policy. Appropriation will be introduced and testimony will be taken at tonight's meeting when the Assembly next meets. The Assembly recently voted 6-3 to modify its invocation policy to permit only those with a religion approved by the borough to present the invocation at the beginning of each meeting. The resolution states that the person delivering an invocation to open a meeting must be a representative of a religious association approved by the Assembly or by a chaplain who serves a fire department, law enforcement agency, hospital, or similar group in the borough. The new policy was in response to a months-long debate over whether to keep the invocation at all. Controversy arose after a member of the Church of Satan gave an invocation over the summer. That prompted a public outcry and protests both from those who support and those who are against the invocation. The Assembly then responded by tightening its policies as to who could deliver the invocation, despite the fact that the Alaska Civil Liberties Union told the Assembly that the resolution limiting those who could sign up to give invocations was unconstitutional. Navarre attempted to veto the Assembly's invocation policy, but was overridden by a 6-3 vote. The only three no votes were Kelly Cooper, Willie Dunn, and Brandy Holmdahl. As news of the potential appropriation circulated through social media, Peninsula residents concerned about that were encouraged to testify or submit comments. A second public hearing will be held on December 6th. As extraordinarily warm temperatures continue in the Arctic, temperatures tens of degrees Fahrenheit above normal for this time of year in some locations, Arctic sea ice seems to be responding in kind. On November 19th, the extent of Arctic sea ice was nearly 1 million square kilometers lower than on that date during the prior record low year in 2012. The state of Alaska has received a waiver for the standardized tests. U.S. Department of Education granting that waiver from the requirements to give students standardized tests in English, math, and science. The waiver is retroactive to last spring, when testing was interrupted by the fiber optic cable break at the campus of the University of Kansas. That's the place that administers the test. Other states were also affected by it. The Alaska Measures of Progress, or AMP test, was then canceled for the year. It was only the second year in use. Also, because of the inconsistency in the scores, State Department of Education decided that the AMP test not entirely useful, and so it's going to be replaced by a different exam next year. The waiver was granted on Friday on the condition that another test be used next spring. Right now, the State Department of Education is in the process of selecting a vendor for those new tests to be given to 3rd through 10th graders. 2 weeks, some planning, and a little financial help was all it took for 3 Kenai residents to get the doors of Sharp's Billiards open once again. That pool hall on the Kenai Spur Highway just east of Forest Drive opened back in 2008 but closed in 2014, reopening briefly this year but only sporadically. Audrey Marvin and Bradley Kukulo came in to play pool a few times and kept wishing it would be open more consistently, and as they were talking about it, they just happened to see a Facebook ad noting that the pool hall was available for lease, and therefore that's what they are doing. They are leasing it and keeping it open. Sharp's Billiards hosting its grand reopening tournament on Saturday, December 3rd, if you happen to be in the area. The Anchorage Downtown Partnership, LTD, and the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation's Live, Work, Play initiative are joining forces now with downtown businesses to bring back the annual Anchorage City of Lights program. The Live, Work, Play Community Safety Area of Focus have identified increased lighting as a key issue in improving public safety in Anchorage, especially in the dark winter months and when there is little snow to reflect existing light. Adding exterior lights to businesses and residences is an easy and effective way to increase safety and walkability in the city during winter time. In addition, the extra light creates an inviting atmosphere into business storefronts, encouraging shoppers and locals to visit and shop at the small local businesses. City of Lights is actually a long-time tradition in Anchorage, going back to 1994, with residents and business owners encouraged to display lights on their buildings throughout the winter, and of course holiday lights as well. Lights are going up this week, and downtown streets will continue to be lit through the end of the Fur Rendezvous in March. Helping the homeless, there was a Thanksgiving meal at the Fairview Rec Center last night. Members of local churches on mission to help those who are less fortunate. They served a traditional Thanksgiving meal at the Fairview Rec Center to people living in shelters. The dozen volunteers or so spent yesterday afternoon preparing the meal, which included turkey, ham, chicken, and side dishes, and about 25 volunteers served that meal last night between 6 and 9 p.m. Incidentally, in light of that meal, it turns out that only 1 in 5 food insecure local Alaskans are touched by this year's Thanksgiving blessing. According to Feeding America's 2014 Alaskan Food Insecurity Statistics, over 50,000 individuals in Anchorage and the Mat-Su borough alone qualify as food insecure people. Within the municipality and the borough, this year's Thanksgiving blessing can only reach 1 in 5 local Alaskans in need. Statewide, that number of food insecure people extends to over 105,000 individuals. The Food Bank of Alaska says that donations of both food and fund are similar to last year, but the amount of families served has increased. If you happen to be part of the 10% of Alaskans who need help in providing a Thanksgiving meal for your family, you can check out the food bank in your local area for their distribution site. In the Fairbanks area, over the last weekend, the Fairbanks Community Food Bank working to bring in supplies for this year's Thanksgiving holiday. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, volunteers are out at Fred Meyer handing out lists of items needed by the food bank. Shoppers were urged to drop off goods as they left the store. Those items were then taken to the food bank to be packaged for distribution tomorrow to families in need. The goal of the drive was 20,000 pounds of food. They exceeded that by about 1,800 pounds. That food is going to go out to 2,200 households this year in the Fairbanks area. And after a short break, we'll be back to conclude our Alaska news for this Tuesday morning.